Starting up now, and we are underway. So, yeah, Tom, whenever you're ready.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to this week's Sweet and Salty Movie Review Podcast. This week, I am Sweet.
And I am Salty.
Hello, Salty. How you doing, my friend?
I'm very well. How are you doing? You okay? Good
Yeah,
week? Good weekend?
well, do you know what? The week has been pretty good, but made even better catching up with you last night at the cinema. So that says a lot about my week.
Yeah, you've had a terrible week, obviously. Have you managed to catch any interesting movies over the weekend, on Amazon Prime or any of the streaming services?
Well, do you know what? I watched a classic war movie called We Were Soldiers with Mel Gibson.
Oh, yeah, I
And
remember that.
I have to say, I forgot how good this movie was, and I really, really enjoyed it.
Very good film.
Yeah.
Yes. Some little hidden gem from Mel Gibson there. Um, yeah, I recall that. I remember I had that on
And
DVD years and
and
years ago.
it's also got Sam. Is it Sam Neill? He
Now you're
plays
asking.
cowboys in a lot of films. I'm gonna have to Google him, and
Yeah.
I don't think it's Sam Neill. It's Sam somebody. Oh,
It is. We will. Yeah. So it's a very good film. I don't recall all the actors in it. I do recall it being a very, very good war movie about the Vietnam War. Very moving stuff. Interesting. So you caught up on more than me. Then I don't think I've caught up on anything. I haven't had time this week. It's so busy, 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 busy. But this week we have got. What have we got? What have we got, Tom? You're leading this podcast this week. Come on. What have we got?
so
Snap to it.
just very quickly, it was Sam Elliott, not Sam Neill.
Oh, I
So
don't know what you mean. Yeah. Okay.
this week, right? So this week we're going to be giving a more in-depth review on the movie Dune Part Two. We'll also give you a quick insight into the latest Blumhouse offering, which was called Imaginary. And then we're going to touch base on we're going to go back to the 80s. We're going to do another podcast at some stage where we're going to review some 80s films. So I've had a look and I've picked out some classics. Whether you want to go with some of my classics is another matter.
Ah,
But I'm probably going to watch a few of them. And we're
we're starting
looking,
with the end today, aren't we? Really. That
and
will go on.
I was going to say, and we're looking to go and see next week Drive Away Dolls. But before we get into that, as
You
always,
you have
remember,
started at the end again, haven't you?
of course,
You know, keeping it
remember.
fresh, keep people guessing. Keep it going.
So, just for our lovely listeners and for our newbies out there, remember to like, listen, subscribe, share. Let us know in the
Like
comments
it
and the
again.
feedback. Like it again. Last
Because
week,
if they hit the
last
like button twice, that means they unlike it. So if they hit it a third
they
time, they'll
probably
like it
do
again.
that.
I know how that button works.
Yeah, they probably do that quite a lot. Yeah, and last week we actually filmed and it's been uploaded, our first YouTube production of this podcast. So we are going international, baby,
Yeah.
going global.
Had to do my hair before we did that.
Well, I was going to say we've got a voice for radio and a face for not
YouTube
TV.
apparently. So yeah, I managed to get a YouTube channel up and running on Sunday. It was a bit later than I wanted it to be, and the last week's recording number 39, episode 39, went up last week. I still got a bit more setting up on the channel to do, but yes, I will share a link in the description to this below, and I'll start sharing it out through all the social medias, except TikTok, because I don't want the Chinese to track anything we're doing, Tom.
Well,
Uh,
and it sounds like
you,
TikTok's going to be banned in America. So our 350 American listeners or 350 million American listeners will be very upset.
you were more accurate with the first number, I'd imagine, but
Yeah,
yes, I
more like
don't.
35.
I'm not sure how many of the Trump supporters listen to us after the few times we've been rather derogatory about about Trump. People don't like to vote for him. Hey, you do you, Americans. If you want a dictator in charge, you guys, You guys won a civil war against the largest empire in the world because you didn't like having a monarchy. If you wish to put someone in charge who wants absolute power, just like, the old English monarchy, you do you guys. You do you guys. Although I do recommend that when you turn up to the Trump rallies, instead of festooning yourself in like the stars and stripes of the American flag, the British Empire had soldiers wore red coats. So go with the red coats, okay? Red coats are more suitable for that particular rally. Okay, if I think we've probably upset a few more subscribers who, like
Yeah, we've now gone down to 34 from
so, no.
35.
Moving swiftly on. So
Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
let's round this off. So yes, we've got Imaginary this week. We've got Dune Part 2. We'll let you know what we're going to go and watch next week. But because of some travel plans, we've got to we've got a special episode coming up. We've got a request to review Airplane, Tom. So I'll be reviewing that, and then I'll let you
Ooh.
decide what you want to review. The only stipulation I think I'll put on it is that it needs to be an 80s movie, I think, to go
All
along
right.
with Airplane.
I will give you these are the films, and you can pick one of them. So,
Oh,
all right, I've got a few. First one, A Fish Called Wanda. So that's John Cleese.
fantastic film.
Yeah, and Jamie Lee Curtis. Or
Yes.
a classic 80s movie called Blue Velvet.
Yep.
Um,
Have a good film.
or Tootsie with Dustin Hoffman.
Yes, very good choice.
Field of Dreams with Kevin Costner.
Yep.
The original Blade Runner.
Okay.
Or Dead Poet Society with Robin Williams.
Right.
Aliens.
Good.
Rain Man, again Dustin Hoffman and Tom Cruise.
Yep.
Or Amadeus. So
I
which
think
one?
what I would suggest is we hold fire on Alien and Aliens because there is an Aliens movie in production.
Okay.
And I think we need to hold fire on those. Same as Ghostbusters, we should probably hold fire on that for the moment as well. But anything else on that list, Tom? Whatever you like, pick one. I'll do Airplane. You can do whatever you want from that list.
I may do a few of them because they are some classic, great movies
Just
in
gonna
there.
sit down over the weekend. We'll organise this offline, but essentially, yeah, we'll do some recording. Next week's podcast will be an in-depth review of Imaginary, and we'll do a very brief overview of what we see next Tuesday, live from the cinema, because we'll have to record it there and then on my phone, and then upload it. So yeah, it'll be an interesting episode next week, probably a bit shorter than our usual episodes, and the following week we will have a special on 1980s classics, led by just the fact that I've had a request to do Airplane. Right, we've been dithering away because let's face it, neither of us really want to get on with Imaginary, but let's cover it off. Let's keep it brief, because I don't think it needs to take much time to give an overview of this, and then we can get our teeth in the Dune Part 2, which I think is a bit more of an interesting subject. So, Tom, were you riveted by Imaginary last night? Go on, tell us your
Well,
thoughts.
look, I'm going to surprise you. So, Imaginary, just for our lovely listeners, this is a Blumhouse production, and Blumhouse tend to specialize in horror stroke suspense movies. Think of The Black Phone, think of Megan, think of Night Swim. Now, if you're a long time listener, you know for a fact we weren't that impressed with Night Swim. Megan was ish, and The Black Phone was very, very good. This is based on the concept of a modern day family. So it's a mum or a stepmom, a dad, and his two children moving back to her family home, the mother's family home, and the youngest stepdaughter then develops an imaginary friend, and you watch how this relationship between the imaginary friend and the daughter develops, but it has flashbacks to the mother or the stepmother, and also has flashbacks to her father. Is it an out and outright horror? No. Is it sinister? No. Is it suspenseful? Little bit. They've got some
Really?
good bits in here, but it's not a great movie. However, I'm going to go completely curveball. I really enjoyed it. I came away thinking, do you know what? Even though it was pretty naff, I quite like the concept of it. It doesn't deserve a repeat or like um, Imaginary Part Two or whatever. And I know they give like a bit of a teaser towards the end that they could if they wanted to, but it's okay. It's not going to win any awards, but and it's got no major jump scenes. However, this is me. I did flinch at one bit, but apart from that, yeah, it's okay. But it's not great. Mark,
E- Well, even the overview for this film doesn't actually make much sense. I mean, let me just read it verbatim, yeah? When Jessica moves back into her childhood home with her family, her youngest stepdaughter, Alice, finds a stuffed bear named Chauncey. As Alice's behavior becomes more and more concerning, Jessica intervenes, only to realize that Chauncey is much more than a stuffed toy bear she believed him to be. I mean, what? I don't get what's going on in this, but you know what I mean. There's like even the overview doesn't. It's a
it
very
doesn't
hard
sell it.
concept.
It just
So,
doesn't
so
sell it.
I mean, if you want to watch, so it's an entertaining film. I won't, but it's quite interesting to see how it all goes, and where it all gets to. I've just realised actually the picture behind you is a bit of a spoiler because you don't see that in the in the trailer. So you're spoiling parts of the film here, Tom, which is
You
against the
know,
rules. It's
I will get.
against the rules of the Sweet and Salty Movie Review podcast. These things are set in stone, and I will hit you with the stone if you keep doing it. It's a big stone. But essentially, it's an entertaining film. It's a good date night film, I think. And it doesn't bang on for too long. I think it's something like was it about an hour and a half long? This film. It's not. Yeah, it's an hour and 44 minutes long. It's not a massively overdone film, overly long film. There you go. You can give that one away. That's fine. But to be honest with you, films like Chucky and Toy Soldiers did this so much better. Yeah, you look like a demented spirit from another realm. Um, yeah, I think films like Chucky and Toy Soldiers did this kind of idea better than this did. It's really well acted, and it just
No,
doesn't kind of come together
I
for me.
I disagree. It wasn't really well acted. I have
You
to
don't think
say. I
so?
don't, no, it felt
Wasn't much
quite,
for the actors to do, to be honest with you,
and
but I didn't
it
think it was a
wasn't
badly gone.
it wasn't a massive cast. I felt, and I even leaned over to you at one stage to go right at the beginning. There was no insight into the makeup of that particular
Yeah,
family.
but that's
I
not the
didn't know
acting, that's the script.
that's the script. So the script wasn't brilliant. The
Mm.
acting wasn't great, but
See, I disagree. I think the acting was the only part of that film that was any good because the music I didn't rate, the script I thought. And again, this is not to say the problem is it's like I was saying last week about how like the Bob Marley movie. You've got to bring all these components together properly to make a good film. There's a good film here, but the components weren't brought together properly
correct,
in my mind. But I thought
correct.
the
Yeah,
acting was actually, considering how you know you're trying to make a suspenseful film here, and I thought the lady the lead actor for this,
Jessica.
Dewanda Wise, her name is. She
Yeah,
plays
Demander
Jessica,
Wise,
and
and
Tegan Burns, who plays Taylor. I thought they did a pretty good job of carrying this through, with Piper Braun being the young Alice. So I thought the trio of them didn't do too bad, and there was a little bit of on-screen chemistry that came across. It's just you can only work with what you got.
yeah.
You can only do what you got. So I think worth a watch, date night movie. If you've not seen Dune or you're not interested in, Timothy Jesus walking across the sand in slow motion to amazing music, then that Dune Part 2 is not going to be your cup of tea, and this might be something worth going out on a Saturday night for. Um, yeah, that's where I think we should leave that, unless you've got anything else to add to this.
No, I think we can touch base more on this next week. But
Is
yeah,
I think so.
yes.
Right, in that
So
case, that brings us on to June Part 2. So, So first of all, because we didn't have the podcast when the original Dune came out, so very briefly, what did you think of the first Dune?
I really liked it. Now I've got to right. So I've seen it a couple of times. I saw it.
I like the way you're karate
Oh,
chopping.
yeah, exactly. Hang on.
Always
Let's.
got to change that background around quick.
Yeah, it's all seamless.
I love the production values on this podcast. Are so high. Desert Jesus has appeared.
Let me. Now I'm completely blocking.
Now you need to move over a little bit. You're blocking Timothy.
Do you know what? That's not a bad thing. Well, it's going to take him.
Atreus.
It's going to take him half an hour to walk across to get to me.
I was going to say he's actually walking at the moment. It's just he's in super slow motion.
Yeah. So look, I remember watching the original version as a teenager, and I really liked it. Granted, it didn't have the budget, it didn't have the special effects, but the story was pretty much spot on to the story we've just seen. And I know it's based on the book, so it will follow the same story, but you can very much see the characters from the 1984 version to this current version. There is a very young Patrick Stewart who is in the original. There's also the singer Sting in the original, and it's got a really good cast. I enjoyed it. And watching it back again, it's like, actually, that really relates to the modern day version. It is enjoyable. I don't know if you've had a chance to see it at all. I've lost you. Oh, right. So, from my point of view,
Need to keep going. I was expecting you to talk for a lot longer than that, to be honest with you, Tom.
Did you have background music?
No. I just muted myself to get rid of some of the background noise, and like you suddenly cut off. Oh, hold on a minute, where's my button gone? That's why I was like, keep going. So I didn't know. I've never seen the old film, but I suspect it's a little bit like watching the Lord of the Rings animated movie from the 1970s to the original, to the three films that were made in 2000, in 99, 2000, 2001. It's
right. I'll give you a good example. Did you ever watch the original Battlestar Galacticas with the Cylons?
Yes.
Right. So imagine the 80s version of Battlestar Galactica,
right,
and the modern, like 2010 version of Battlestar Galactica that was on Sky.
I get your plan here, Tom, but there is one problem. I never really watched any of the modern Battlestar Galacticas. But I get your point. However, so I saw Dune Part 1 in the cinema. There was like between lockdowns, I think it was. And I have to admit, I found it quite slow. And I kept thinking the action's gonna get going at some point. At some point, it's gonna do something, and it never quite got there. That wasn't as I didn't enjoy the film, but that my opinion of it was just like it's almost like an on-screen drama rather than an epic sci-fi kind of the sort of movie. I kept thinking Star Wars for some reason, like more than Star Trek.
Yeah, so
but this is more Star Trek than Star Wars, really, isn't it?
Yeah. So part one is all about building the scene, setting the scene, and understanding all the different houses, all the different characters that make up Dune, stroke make up the spice mining business, make up all the different houses that are all competing for the empire's attention. They all want they want the contract. It's like watching companies bid for these tenders, and guess what? There's only going to be one winner, and when they get it, they're going to have problems delivering it. And so, yeah, the first film is all about building those characters and really sort of tying you in. So it's like, oh my god, what's happened to the House of Atreides? We've really got to root for these people now. Actually, what's happened to the inhabitants of the planet? And then part two comes along, and I've been really looking forward to part two. And yes, you're right. There are some there are some dramatic scenes. There are some like wide angle shots where you've got like the two lovers sitting on the side of a mountain, or you've got like them surfing on the top of the sandworms, and it is all done for dramatic effect. And visually, it is like mind blowing. It is so it sort of sucks you in, and you're part of that journey, and you're sort of rooting for the underdog. Um, I think it could have had more action. I think it could have had more violence. But actually, I think all the characters really played their roles really well. So for me, this is a great movie. And I could, if the cinema said, right, we're going to play part one, then part two back to back, I would definitely be there to watch it.
I was kind of surprised they didn't actually. They do
I'm
quite often, but
surprised.
they
Yeah.
are quite long movies. But still, I mean, they played Endgame. I remember when I saw Endgame. I saw Infinity War, then Endgame, and they played Endgame at 12:01 on a Wednesday, basically a Thursday morning, so that they could show it on the day it released. And they've done that a few times where, and I've sat, I didn't get back home till like 3:30 in the morning. So, and I've done it a few times. I've watched all the Captain America movies back to back, but this is a good segue into June Part Two because I think you say June Part One was just setting up for June Part Two, but I feel like June Part Two is setting up for June Part Three. So I think this is a bit of a masterpiece when it comes to the technical way that you create a film. It has got all these amazing scenes that are there. It's like they found the right place to set the right script with all the right music. And Hans Zimmer deserves every award under the sun for some of the music that's in this film. There's one particular track which I will look up in a minute that is utterly, utterly amazing. It's right at the end of the film. You've got Chani. She's summoning a worm as she's about to separate away from Paul Atreides as he sends off his armies into space, and it's just such an amazing piece of music that picks up the mood along with the scene. As the camera rises, the sand is sort of that effect with the sand as it's being blown off the top of the dune, the sun coming down in the background, the worm approaching, the thump, thump, thump. It's just the whole thing is so magnificently put together.
Mm,
Magnificently put together.
it's a
Ben,
masterpiece.
my son, who is studying cinematography, he really nerded out on this film, and I think that is where I kind of come a little bit unstuck with these. I think this is why I will not like these as much as I did Lord of the Rings or the original Star Wars or even some of the Star Trek stuff, because I think it's technically amazing and it should be recognized as being an amazing film. And I have nothing but good things to say, but I like the build up to the end. It's almost like reading a book. Lots of books you read, there's like lots and lots of story and they build up to some epic finale, but this doesn't ever kind of satisfy on the finale basis. It's you see, for example, they launched the atomic weapons at the mountains, blow this mountain range out of the way. The worms come through the dust, and then they start knocking things aside, and it's over. And that's it. And then you see Chani's kind of troops come out of the sand, go running at the troops, and there's a bit of fight, and it's over. And it's kind of right. I can use my imagination to fill this bit in, but I want to see this, like the terror and the destruction, because it adds to the depth of the story. Because essentially, this is a religious story. Paul is taking the place of a religious deity. The second coming is basically Jesus, and these people are being used to fight his battle. And whether or not he really is, this is the problem with religion, because you can fit a religious narrative to a person's story. Religion. I have been to church many times in my childhood, and I always remember there was always an answer. The Bible always had an answer. But I realised is that the answers the Bible gives you can fit many, many different scenarios. They are so vague to the point of being ridiculous. It's like the story of that man dies and he looks back and he's standing next to Jesus or God or whoever, and he looks back and he sees in certain parts of his life that he only sees one set of footprints, and he turns to God or Jesus. He says, "Why did you abandon me at these times? Because these were the hardest parts of my life." And then God turns around and says, "Oh no, I did not abandon you. I was carrying you." And I think, fuck off. It's like when you go through hardships in your life, yeah, what? That I'm supposed to be thankful to this deity for going through all these problems, and somehow he was helping me. In what way? In what way were you helping me, pal? What way were you doing? So I can get kind of the problem is that it's the human cost that's going to be really important in one of these films. You've got all these troops piling onto these spaceships, and at the end of the film, they all fly. Basically, they go to fight, and it's like I want to see that bit. Come on, where's that bit of the film? That's the bit I want to see next. But there
And
is going to be a
that's
cost, and you're
that's
not going to
called
feel it.
yeah, that's called marketing, Mark. It's dangled the carrot, and listen to yourself. You want the next bit.
Madam Web did the same bloody thing, and no one thanked them for it. And if this had not been as technically brilliant as it is, people would not be enjoying this film as much. They'd have the same problems that they have with Madam Web or with the Morbius movie, and they'll probably have with the Saber movie coming up. It's I don't want to see this film. I want to see the one it keeps hinting at. And that's the problem with Dune and Dune Part 2. But they win over you because they are technically breathtaking. I've seen it twice, and I wasn't bored on the second time round. So it's an amazing film, but it won't score really, really high up there because I think it's very nerdy. It's just design. It's just done by people that know how to make an amazing set piece, who can take an image and put the right music into it and put the right people into it, make all the people look right, but they're just not telling the story in my mind in the right way. I don't think. However, I am but a mere podcasting, YouTubing person who reviews these movies, and I'm only giving you my opinion. And I suspect that many, many people will disagree with me and say these are some of the best films they've ever seen in their lives. Right. So it's not a hate. I don't dislike the film.
No, I know. Yeah,
I think it'll come a cropper when in like part 3 or 4 when you have to see the real human cost, and you won't feel it because millions of these people are going to die, and you just don't see it. You just have to imagine it.
They did, because they dangled that carrot in this version or this part 2, where he starts having the dreams where he's like, I just see death and destruction.
Yep.
And his visions are there are people dying all over the galaxy.
Yep.
So yeah, I think you're right.
But you're proving my point here, not your own.
Yeah,
because
they're dangling the carrot, and you're thinking, but that's the bit I want to see.
No. You're So at the end of this movie, there's a massive fight. Yeah. Lots and lots of people will have died in that fighting. You don't see any of them.
They didn't show it.
And
I know.
Yet they showed you his visions of people dying. And I was sitting there thinking, surely at this point, this is the scene where he does walk slowly through the battlefield and he sees a glimpse of his own image, a glimpse of his own foretelling right in front of him. Because that really hammers home the idea that this is sacrifice. People are going to die, and this may not be. He may not be a god. He doesn't believe himself to be some sort of religious deity. It's all chemistry and science that's giving him these visions into the future, not some hocus pocus magic. So, do you see what I mean? Do you get what I'm trying to say? I'm having trouble getting this across.
I've got the answer for you. It's called 28 Years Later. It's going to be the next Danny Boyle film. And you are going to see death and destruction where zombies eat each other.
It'll be the first scene of Dune Part 3. Someone's walking through the sands and there's dead bodies everywhere. Probably. But again, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the director's, he's got it all planned out in his head, and he's done a great job with Part 1 and Part 2. And then it all kind of hammers home. But again, maybe it's just not that sort of story. Maybe I need to go and do some research with the books. But I just feel like it's missing that. It's missing that real human cost that you're just not getting. All the characters have survived so far, really.
If they do it like that, then you're ending up sitting down watching a 3.5-hour movie. Now, actually, I wouldn't mind watching a 3.5 hour movie if it did include all that.
Depends
But
on how
then,
fast Timothy Chalamet's walking across the desert, you know.
yeah, but you think of the film Napoleon, where they did some of
Mm.
those huge battle scenes, and actually they were crap.
Yeah, but the problem with Napoleon was it focused on his life outside of the battles and not on the
Correct.
battles
Yeah, I
themselves.
know. But when they did that sort of the drone zooming out, when you see all the soldiers running
Yeah,
across the
yeah.
battlefield, that could have been a really in-depth battle. But they didn't. They didn't show
No,
that
no.
really.
And I'm not advocating for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour's worth of battle scenes here. I'm advocating for 4 or 5 minutes of scenes that really bring home the cost of it. That really
Yeah,
tell you, look, there's 100,000 people fighting on this battlefield, and a significant number of them are not going home because it's
yeah,
supposed to provide that kind of cost.
and a film where they got that really right, Saving Private Ryan, the opening scenes when they storm
Yep.
the beach,
Yeah.
and that was 5 or 10 minutes of thousands, tens of thousands of people being machine gunned down or flamethrowered down or
Yeah.
attacked by planes, or by tanks, and you're like, wow, and this is like the first 10 minutes, and then you've got the individual village fight
Mm.
scenes. That is, well, that's Steven Spielberg at his best, producing a really great World War II film.
Yep.
Um, and that's the sort of thing the audiences want.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah, it just seems like, I had no problem with the build up whatsoever. It just didn't feel like any of the stakes had a payoff. And it's not me wanting to see an action movie, because I can go and watch an action movie to get an action movie. It's the fact that all the way through this, part one is where he is denying the fact that he doesn't want to be this messiah. He just wants to help these people. He starts off with, if I get these people on my side, then I'll be able to avenge my father. But he really then doesn't want to be Desert Jesus. He wants to just avenge his father, and he's found a way to do it. And he joins these people, and he finds that he cares about them. Part two is where things shift in the favor of the bad guys,
mm,
and you get Fayed Ruther Hard appear, Austin Butler's character, and then that point, that's where poor Atreides has to start. He has to then travel south. He's starting to worry that his future is going to come true, and then he embraces that future. And part three is when basically the shit is supposed to hit the fan. He's decided, right, if it's going to be fucking war, it's going to be war, and this is going to go down. And there's no payoff for that part, because you don't see it. You don't get to feel it. You don't get to experience it. And he didn't need to put in 20 minutes of fight scenes. It could have literally just been, with the scenes they already had, an additional scene where he's just walking through the corpses, and it's reflective of what he saw in his visions, because at that point it brings it up to life. And that's the payoff that's not really there in my mind. And it's a very small problem, considering, because the rest of the movie just carries it. But
mm.
if you're going to do, because this is just one book, there's like 4 books or something. So there's, what are there, another 6 movies? It's got to have these kind of things. What's going to happen is, it's just, if it's one of these movies after another, eventually you're going to get to number 4 and think, right, okay, look, I love the scenes, I love the amazing shots, I love the amazing music, but for God's sake,
Where
I've
are we
lost
getting?
interest in the
Yeah.
story, because it's not bringing me in anymore. And I think maybe that'll be the problem, but I could be wrong about that. We could be looking at this in 2, 3 years' time, and I'm sitting there going, do you know what? I was very much wrong about this, and that could be the case. So, what would
But,
you what have you got
well,
any other thoughts? Because I've done a lot of talking in the last 20 minutes.
I was going to say, any standout characters for you in this particular movie? Any
Oh,
particular
blimey.
actors?
I was so Christopher Walken is always interesting when he turns up, because Christopher Walken does Christopher Walken. So he was an interesting pick for the Emperor, but I really enjoyed seeing him. Javier Bardem, fantastic. Josh Brolin, brilliant. Austin Butler, I think he did a really good bad guy, and it was a bit of a shame that they killed him off in the end. Because it's a bit like the Disney problem. You don't want to kill off your bad guys, but I suppose it's in the book, perhaps.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, otherwise, they're all done a really, really good job. What about for you?
Florence Pugh. I thought she was really good.
Very,
Um,
very good, especially considering her character is only introduced in this, and she brings a lot of presence to the movie, considering she's not got a huge amount of scenes in it.
correct. I again Rebecca Ferguson, but then I've got a soft spot for her.
Could have just
Zendaya.
turned up.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. From my point of view,
Talented young ladies in there. Timothy Chalamet as well is fast becoming one of my favourite actors. He's very, very talented. Everything he seems to do just seems to be very, very good. And then you've got Leah Seydoux who plays Margot Fenring. She's like the nun person
yes.
who is obviously going to reappear because she's carrying Fade Rothahar's child. You know, and I think she's very, very good as well. So yeah, I'm very impressed. Everyone in this film is amazing. Dave Bautista again, another outstanding performance from him. Stellan Skarsgård as playing various different characters because I'm sure they're supposed to be clones. These the bad guys. What are they called? The Harkadans.
Yes.
It seems to me they're supposed to be clones. They're not all. They don't all look exactly the same, but Stellan Skarsgård plays quite a few of them. Yeah, and he does a brilliant job. So yeah.
So
So
what are you going to score it?
what you go first? What do you want to score on
I'm
this?
going to score it right. So I'm scoring it 4.4.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I think it's a good movie. I think it's got a good storyline. It's got a good it's got a great cast,
Mm,
visuals, the sound. It is a great epic movie. Is it
yeah,
doing is it doing anything different? No. Otherwise it would have got a higher score from me.
I am. I've ummed and ahed over this actually for the last few days because I've been listening to some of the music from the movie, and I keep thinking as I keep humming one of the tunes as well. And it just keeps going back to me, and I keep thinking to myself, it's technically just so brilliant. It's like a racing car that's been incredibly well put
Tuned.
together.
Yeah.
It's like it's an amazing feat of engineering. The problem is it's not kind of this is a bad example. Like, a racing car can't be used as a normal car, and Dune feels like it's an incredible piece of art. But does that make it an incredible piece of entertainment? Like the Mona Lisa is hands down an incredible piece of art, but I couldn't spend any more than 5 minutes staring at it before I was bored. So, and
Well,
maybe that's a reflection of me.
you'll be bored because you'll be in the queue for 20 minutes. And
However,
you can see the Mona Lisa while you're in the queue.
yeah. And however, this isn't this is a it's a terrible set of examples. It's very hard to put this across because you can't really look at an example like that and say it's like looking at a painting because it's not. It is entertaining in its own way and it is fun. I just feel like there's some flaws in the storytelling which are going to come back and bite them in the arse eventually. Um, because they're too focused on the how perfectly beautiful it looks and sounds and feels, and you do have to put some stakes into this, otherwise we're not going to care about the characters. And I think that's it. I think I looked at this, I loved the scenery, I loved the music, I loved the acting in it, I loved the way it all fell together. I am not invested in any of these characters. I don't think if they killed off Rebecca Ferguson's character in the next one, I don't think I'd care. I think it would just be something that happens in the movie. Not that I don't care about Rebecca Ferguson. Obviously, I don't want to see her anything happen to her. But I'm saying that if they got rid of her character, remember when her character died in the Mission Impossible film? That I cared about. I could that you had some emotional investment in that. I don't have any in this. I really don't. I don't. If they killed. They killed off Zendaya. Um, Timothy Chalamet, blimey, okay, that's interesting. Where the hell's the story going from here? Then that's what I'd think, rather than sitting there and going, no, no, not Charlie. They can't kill Charlie off. By the way, I think I'm going to make a prediction, and I haven't read the books. I think Charlie ends up being Desert Jesus in the end, the real Desert Jesus. Um, yeah, so I'm going to give it.
Not
I
Chancery.
not. Oh, yeah, I've been bouncing between 3.9 and 4.1 as to whether or not to put it on the positive side of 4 or the negative side. And I think I'm going to come down on 4.1.
Okay.
But
You
if
could
they
have gone
don't
down the
do
middle. You could have gone
something,
4.
yeah, I could have done, but Yeah, it either deserves to be in that top area, or it deserves to be just outside of it.
Yeah.
And
That's a good score. It's
yeah, I think
still a good score.
4.1.
Yeah.
Because again, I, I suppose actually the only character I am actually invested in is Charlie, is Zendaya's character, because she did such a great job, especially at the end of that film, where she's obviously heartbroken, she's torn.
Yeah.
Paul's become this thing that she doesn't want him to become. She's kind of responsible for that because she didn't let him stay behind. You can see the emotions are all she's been pulled in different directions. And whilst Florence Pugh did bring a lot to the screen, she just wasn't in it long enough to give that
Yeah.
investment. But yeah, I just don't. Yeah, anyone else on that list, their characters can come and go, and I think I'd find it interesting as the story progresses, but I just wouldn't be invested. I really wouldn't be. It wouldn't upset me, sort of thing, in the way that Rebecca Ferguson's character was killed off in Mission Impossible, and that kind of like I was really rooting for Tom Cruise to go and get that guy, get him. How dare he, evildoer. Yeah, right. That's June. I think we chatted enough about June. So next week, we got some chaos coming up, Tom, because as I am off, I'm going away, so traveling the world again.
We're doing
What is that?
80s.
Oh, we're doing is it 80s movies? Here we go. Well, let me just get the appropriate background tunes on for this bit. So here we go.
We need our
Just play.
glow
Oh, you can't hear
sticks.
this, can you? I've got the holiday show theme tune playing in the background. All right. So yeah, I'm off on some charity events for a week and a bit. Tom will be here, but obviously he's useless, so he can't actually use the technology to pull out or put together a podcast by himself.
That's because
Maybe
you haven't
eventually
asked
you'll
me.
learn. Maybe eventually you'll learn how to do it, Tom. Mind you, I'd have to give you. I've got to give you access to all of the accounts and everything as well. So can I trust you with all these passwords?
Well, that's when I find
Oh,
out that you've got like £20,000 sponsorship deals, and
yeah, that's it. When
you're
you
getting
disappear,
prime drinks and
as soon as you disappear, I'm like 81 greens. Well, everyone's my favorite soda is Diet Coke.
we're sponsored by Casio calculators.
Casio calculators.
It's the 80s.
Energizer batteries. Keep your Walkman going. No, there's no sponsorships, unfortunately. Yeah. So anyway, what we'll do is we'll put together in a completely professional way a review for Imaginary and an overview for the film we're going to see next week, which was what was it called? Top Down Diner,
drive away dolls.
Drive Away Dolls. That was it. And then the week after that, we will also have recorded we'll record in advance a special 80s movie review. So we have an 80s movie night coming up. But I think that's it. I think
Yep,
we've run out
I
of things
think
to
it
talk
is.
about, Tom.
I think it's time to say goodnight, Russell. Thank you to all our lovely listeners that have grin and bared us for this amount of time already. Tonight is our 40th episode, all being well. And as Mark says, next week's going to be an interesting one where we record it live from the car straight after the cinema. So if you
The
see us being
mobile
arrested,
studio.
yeah,
Mobile studio.
if you see us being arrested,
Why would
yes.
anyone see us being arrested? It's like they don't follow us around. It's not like we ain't got a load of rodeos or anything. Oh my
So on
god.
that note, thank you everyone. As per usual, like,
Uh,
listen, subscribe, send us your comments. If there's anything you want us to watch, let us know. And thank you all for listening. Take
Let us
care.
know
Good
in the
night.
comments. Let us know in the comments if you agree with my point of view on Dune. I'd be very interested to see if there's anyone else who's thinking the same thing I'm thinking. Otherwise, ladies and gents, we'll be back next week. Have a great week. Have a great weekend. See you soon.